Family. It looks a little different for everyone. For some, it's mom and dad. For others, roommates who feel like family. And for others, it's your significant other, their golfing buddies, your children, a high school soccer team starting lineup, and oh look, they're all taking you up on the offer to stay for dinner, really testing the limits of that phrase, the more the merrier. But no matter where you call home, Geico makes it easy to bundle and save on home and car insurance. Easier than making 3 frozen pizzas and assorted frozen veggies into a cohesive meal.
Hey everybody, welcome to Public Access America's Just the Tip. These things are like famously just popular somewhere, I'm sure.
Hopefully.
Just the tip.
I would say I'm gonna go with find a way to be lazy and have the choice that you don't want to make ready for you. And that's something that I'm working on, where it's like, you know, I've gotten used to the convenience of like we talked about, all of these different options and choices available to me, but they're not great options. So it's like, you know, I'll make a decision now, this is what I'm going to do, and then make it lazy for myself. So it's like, all right, cool, this is right here and ready for me.
Right.
And have the better choice available.
It is time now for something positive.
We might be headed to the promised land,
speaking the truth and finding our external liberty once we internally liberate ourselves.
Problem can only be solved when there is a kind of coalition of conscience.
Because that is how it works.
This is the beginning, it is not the finale, and that's why we're here, and that's why we rally.
We've got to be that creative minority.
Find a way to get in the way. I got in trouble. It was good trouble. It was necessary trouble.
Frankly, I know we've got to do something.
Wow. Hi, Dan.
Hi, folks. How's it going?
Good. I had this great opening for this show, and I didn't know if I could do it because you were coming in an hour late. But I wanted to be like, hey, Public Access League, thanks for joining me here in Orlando.
Love it. I love it.
Because I can't get past the point that, you know, when I thought about it, Dan, you totally have my Superman vibe going on there, you know? And Jeffrey, I'm sorry, I can't get past Aquaman with you. And Karin, I don't want to gender stereotype, but you are what I would want in a Wonder Woman, you know what I mean? And just it leaves me as Batman arranging all this, so.
Okay, Jason, funny enough, like the old English, old German pronunciation of my last name is Sevarta, which meant guardian of the sea.
Perfect.
Really?
That's what I'm saying.
That's perfect.
So I'm like, Aquaman,
God.
really? And I'm like, okay, that actually somewhat makes sense, and I hate it.
It does. And you can't tell me that if Karin walked into a school and said, I'm Wonder Woman, you wouldn't listen to everything she had to say. She's just that positive and insightful. And Dan, come on, you swoop in. You stood in front of the Capitol when we needed it. You went to Pennsylvania and tracked when we needed it. You're going all over the country in hot spots when we need it. That is the definition of Superman. Oh. And if I didn't want to be equivalated to the Lawnmower Man, I'm just going to go with Batman.
Well, you are running all the tech for this show, so I guess you got to be the more technical one of the team. Kind of works.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. So Dan, I'm going to ask you what's top of mind for you before we get into any like subjects and anything like that.
Well, that's actually a good question. I came in kind of with a blank slate, looking forward to having some fun with you guys. But I think if I was to say top of my mind still is unfortunately the situation in Ukraine right now. I was just driving past yesterday. There was a Ukrainian Orthodox church and school in one of the suburbs where I live, which I hadn't been to in a while, and I'd forgotten it was there. So I was thinking more about that and how things have kind of reignited there, and how that's been kind of a stressful time for those of us who are potentially involved or could get potentially involved in everything. So, but also thinking about how it's not just it's not just obviously the primary attacks and the violence and everything going on, but just the fact that the country's getting really devastated as well. So it's a bit of a downer, but that's kind of what I've been thinking about a little bit more recently. But more locally, I've also been thinking about how it went from snowing on Monday until the 90s yesterday and today. And it's like, great, we got a 36 hours spring, and now we're just going to be in full on summer mode and thinking about that. So those are the two things on my mind. Very diametrically opposed there, but those are that's going on. So I figure both of those, and the situation of Ukraine and the existential issues of climate change might be a good way to start talking about the value of an anxiety support system. So maybe a little bit of thematic there.
How about I combine the two and let you know that there has not been this much human ash in our atmosphere since World War II.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
and
joy.
It isn't anything other than Ukrainian people right now, or Russian people from Ukraine, or people that lived in Ukraine. That's just a devastating thing to think about. But that's the only way I could combine it. I'll tell you, my heart is in Maripole, and I don't know what's going to happen to those people, but it's going to drastically affect the way I feel about Russian people generally, and more specifically, the Russian government. Like, that lady that died crawling out of the hospital, the pregnant lady, that had me. And I was like, there's no going back. But if you're just going to seal those people off in Mariupol and make that a monument, I don't know if I will ever respect the word Russian again. And that stinks. That stinks.
It is really hard for sure. And I think it's difficult to see as well. I think what's also frustrating as well is that I've obviously seen there's a lot of people who have been trying to advocate and raise money or send over resources and everything. But I think what's also kind of been frustrating is that on the American side, it seems to be, because it's such a hot button issue, a lot of people are trying to kind of personally take advantage of it and say, oh, well, we're going to do this or whatever, and we stand with Ukraine. It's like, no, stop with the performative activism. Like, if you're going to do something awesome, we'll support you. But don't just write, there was a restaurant I went to a couple weeks ago, and there was an extra line that they had printed. It's like, here's your bill, here's the line for your tip, and here's an extra line for Ukraine. Add some money there and total. It's like, no, you're not sending this money to Ukraine. Come on. Like, right. Don't kid yourself. Don't try to kid us into thinking that you're going to just be taking out. And if so, where are you going to spend it? Who's going to be involved? And I think I think it kind of ties into the fact that there's a lot of performative activism that happens in this country about a lot of issues. And I think we don't have enough voices for entities and organizations that actually do constructive and productive work. And everyone just tries to jump on the bandwagon. So I think one way that we can kind of reflect on that in our society is we can obviously feel sad and sorry and frustrated about the situation going on, but we can also think about ways that we can improve our ability to mobilize American resources to help people. And it can help start in our own backyard, right? We can do things better, but a lot of that also is based on the exchange of information. So that's kind of where I'm thinking about all of this. Where it's hitting close to home is the feelings, but also bandwagoning and how we can prevent that and be a little bit more judicious about it.
Like, there's a guy here in Olympia. He runs a couple of food shops in town, and COVID had everything shut down for him. And right as he was about to open, a sewer main burst, and his shop was just basically completely ruined. They had to gut the whole thing. And right as they're still working through all the legal stuff, he's trying to get fixed, the war in Ukraine breaks out, and the guy's like, I make food, this is what I do. And he just up and left for Poland to help run a kitchen out there in order to feed refugees coming across the border into Poland. And so, like, it's been really interesting when you talk about performative activism, because you see this in a wide range of results. You've got people who are trying, saying, I stand with Ukraine. They do all the hashtags, all the pictures, and everything else, but there's not really a whole lot else that's going into those just those hashtags. And it's great to show support, but like you said, there's a number of different performative acts that we've seen, and we've seen time and time again. Even for me, it's like, even I've questioned, if and when this is over, I feel like there's something that I want to / need to do, and I'm trying to figure out what that is, do I go over and volunteer some time for a couple of weeks to, help out in one of the communities out there and help them clean up and rebuild? What can I do? And then of course, I've got, any number of different posts and things going through of, how people are, I'm going to go volunteer with the Ukrainian military. It's like, you have zero training. You are a liability. It's like, I'm armed to the teeth, and there's no way in hell I'm going over there to volunteer my time. Why? Because I don't know dick about combat or running security. That's walking around with a gun is not going to have this, not going to be the help that you need. It. What they need is trained people that know what they're doing. If you're not that, you're a liability.
Yeah, I get a lot of I would have joined the military, but I would have punched my drill sergeant vibes.
Yeah,
of these people.
Hell, you would have.
And there are some people who've gone over who have the experiences. A lot of veterans who have made the decision to volunteer, and I fully respect them for it and everything.
Absolutely.
And it's also important to consider the greater socio-political context of it, right? What happens when Russia kills an American soldier with an American flag? Because they all wear it. I don't know if they all do, but a lot of the international members of the regiment they're setting up wear a flag of their home regiment. Now, what happens if one of them gets killed in combat? Now the Russians are like, hey, the United States military is in this. It's important to and it's really hard to think about those difficult things because you want to go over and help, but it's trying to find that balance is really difficult. It's like politically, and thinking of the bigger picture. It's like, how much good can I do as a fighter on the front lines versus being a baker who can go over and help prepare food, or volunteering with a more reputable organization that's setting up a larger mission, right? It's important to make those decisions. And I like what you're saying about I want to do something, but I'm trying to figure it out. A lot of people just kind of rush into the first opportunity they get and just get overwhelmed with it and realize that they're either they don't end up doing anything productive, or they end up, like you said, actively harming or being a liability. And we've seen this again, issues with COVID, with emergency staffing, people volunteering to join like the Medical Reserve Corps, not having any experience, previous conflicts. Look at everything that happened with the Red Cross in Haiti in 2011, all those billions of dollars that happened, and there was no plan, and then 6 homes got built with the billions of dollars that were donated.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. There's all kinds of issues, not just, there's snakes in the grass, obviously, but there's also programs that do not have good surge plans.
Right.
So how do we increase our staff by 600%, quintuple our budget in 2 weeks, and not completely fold as an organization, right? And that's a huge challenge in these emergencies. And it's I think we focus a lot of preparedness. Like, that's a little bit of my background is like emergency response and preparedness, right? We focus a lot of it on what do we need to do in order to respond to something when we are affected, but also on the flip side, what do we do with all the stuff that we get? Because if we get the publicity, we get the profile, how do we manage those extra logistics?
Right.
And I think a lot of people think of emergencies as we are out of supplies, but sometimes you can have too many supplies and not know what to do with it, right? So that's kind of where I'm thinking about that.
I think we've learned that we can just throw money at everything and anything, and so we just throw money anywhere and everywhere. But if we could think of long-term solutions, more like investing in a Peace Corps, instead of throwing our money into that, maybe investing in something like the Peace Corps, or as we can for Ukraine, we'll promote organizations that we've looked into that benefit Ukraine and not the infrastructure to collect the money to give a portion of it to Ukraine.
That's a really good point. I like that a lot. And focusing on entities that really give good training, and earmarking money for training of personnel, because that's so often overlooked, right? People will get all kinds of supplies, donate all kinds of cash, but earmark it for training of X individuals to do this, right? There's a lot of nonprofits that have to, by law, follow what those donations do,
right?
And that's a really commonly overlooked issue. And if you're able to force money in that direction knowledgeably, that can pay dividends many times over, much more so than just sending a can of soup to your local soup kitchen. Nothing wrong with local soup kitchen, of course, but there's ways to use your money more judiciously and more effectively to get more bang for your buck, in some cases quite literally.
Right.
Yeah, just do a lot of research and due diligence on and where the money's going, or where what you're doing, if it's needed and when it's needed most. And I think that's what a lot of people lack, is just sitting down and doing a very good research around that. It's very easy, convenient to just give money to the to somewhere, right? And then feel good about it.
Yeah. And the same thing is true for like new startups and new emerging businesses that kind of grow, right? They can have a massive influx of cash, but without the logistics to handle it, they can often fold. That actually happened to a company I recently worked with, and it actually went under because they had a huge investment and then they just were not able to reorganize their infrastructure. So I'm curious of how this relates to Karin's experience with EarKick, right? You know, having additional resources come up, how do you manage and support that work for yourself as you're starting to gain this publicity?
That's a great question.
Yeah, it's a very good question. It starts with, again, due diligence and doing your homework. So we made sure that we had a very good 18-month plan and planned out how much money we actually really need. And then you raise that and not more, because more money can become a problem very, very fast. It's a liability. And if you don't have a clear plan on what you're going to spend that money on, then it's going to be in your way. As an example, like we closed the round at 1 million and started working, because for us it was so important to start working and to start hiring. We knew that we were up against the big companies in terms of talent. So we knew that if we want to hire a very, very good machine learning engineer, that we were up against Amazon, Apple, and Facebook. They're all in Zurich too. And so we knew it could take anywhere between 3 and a month and a year to find the right person. And it did take longer. So now imagine raising more money. More money is not going to get you the right person. And then you sit on that money and your plans go wrong, because the bottleneck is not the money. The bottleneck is the talent. And that's why we did not raise more. And we started working and we started looking for the right people. Thank God we found the right machine learning wizard, Gagan. Amazing guy. He's working for the cause. He has a PhD. He's exactly the right mindset, but it took time. Not money. It took time.
Interesting. I would think with Facebook and Twitter's reputations and going downhill, a lot of these people would be abandoning ship for smaller independent projects like yours.
You would really
not necessarily,
right?
Money is money, right?
Money is money, and that's the thing is like it really takes somebody who money is important, don't get me wrong, but you also have to believe in the values, the company values of what you're getting. And a lot of the times finding that individual that has the skill set but also believes in the mission to the point of I'm one of those people, like, I like money? Yeah. Would I work for a larger company? It really depends on what it is I would be doing.
Right.
But at the same time too, like, I like working for the smaller guys because there's a mission focus there that's more on community than on just providing a service. And so it's a really tough one, because at some point, we all have our price, whether we want to admit it or not.
Yes.
But at some point, but depending on what you're doing and depending on what your situation looks like, sometimes that price is really high, sometimes that price is not as high as you'd like it to be. But if you find the right thing that sparks, for lack of a better word, sparks joy in what you're doing, sometimes it's a lot easier to sacrifice the money because you have something that holistically fits with your value system.
Karin's looking at you like she wants to hire you now just because you said that.
Well, he's absolutely right.
I wouldn't mind coming over to Switzerland. My German isn't as good as I'd like it to be, but I can still speak a bit. I can still understand.
We only speak English, and people live wherever they want. We have a almost zero meeting culture, so no meetings required. You can live wherever you want. And the people who work for us, they don't even have to report hours or anything. They just need to work, be focused, and take enough breaks, stay mentally healthy, and they get money if they take vacations. They get money if they take vacations. So because we know exactly what it takes to keep someone well, engaged, and honest. And to your point before, we had at least 2 talents. Really, everything was great about their CV and etc. But they were earning $800K a year, and it's not like they wouldn't settle in for less. But $800K is nowhere near what we can pay and what we want to pay, because again, money, anyone can do money. Mm-hmm. But if you hire someone that chooses you for the money, he's going to leave you for the money. So, it wasn't a fit, because they had also, they have a house and they have their children in college and whatnot. So they have gotten themselves into a situation where they cannot just, leave and settle for a startup salary, right? Right? So it didn't work out. We had to find the right person in the right situation with the right mindset and the right set of skills, and that just takes time, and it's not a matter of money. Even if we had those 800,000 a year, it wouldn't have worked out, because it's the wrong incentive, it's the wrong situation. We need someone hungry, young, with all their, with the future in front of them, who wants to experience, not someone who's had it all, seen it all, done it all. They're not going to be hungry enough.
Anybody can come in for $500,000 a year and monetize your app to the point of non-use, right? But you want somebody that's going to develop the app over the profits, so that in long term you have something consistently profitable, as opposed to just instantly profitable and then goes away. I like that.
We want to keep the team. If you add the right person, it's like adding $2 million of worth of value to your company. So you better choose well.
I'm a late millennial. I won't date myself explicitly, but I do have a number of friends who are like right on the cusp between like millennial age and starting to have Gen Z. Mm-hmm. And I think it's really interesting the way that you're framing this, because it reflects a lot of what kind of the changing values about employment by young people are, especially in like it's not the Great Recession, what are we calling it now, like
Great Resignation.
Great Resignation, thank you. Right. A lot, and I was part of this, right? I ended up leaving a company because they did a lot of great lip service to, we want to have a good work-life balance and all this stuff and everything, and
they all do that now,
and then there's a real difference between saying, we want to do this, and being like, no, this is how it's going to happen. This is what we know. Let's listen to our base and see what we want to have as a company culture. And I feel like, a lot of us in the 20s range who are like early career, the number one phrase that I keep hearing from my friends and my peers about why they didn't like jobs or what's frustrating about them is like, I wish that there was more impact. I wish there was more value behind what I did, right? Yes. We are increasingly valuing jobs that aren't just, turn the crank, get the money, do the thing, right? We want impact. We want to have our time be made material. And it's like, this sounds really cheesy, but like the E=mc² equation, like energy and mass, like energy is potential and mass is energy made real. It's like time and money are almost the same thing. It's like money is time with potential, and time is money made real, basically, right? And I think that's a balance that is really shifting very quickly in the age of instant information that we're in. And it's a lot of established entities and corporate businesses just have not caught up to really, they think, we can do this. No, you have to really understand that and build your company from the ground up to attract young people to really want to work for you. That's just my perspective, but I would love to hear Karin's opinion, like as you're directing this great. I really want to hear from whether or not you agree, disagree, if this is your experience.
I totally agree. And when I was still managing director of Impact Hub Zurich, we were battling with this problem because we wanted people to stay, and the Gen Z that generation, they came in and with the old-fashioned kind of offering them, more pay or offering them the typical perks, and they didn't care. They told me, look, first of all, I don't want to work 100%. I'm going to work 80% max. And I want a sabbatical after a year. And I want to have a title, not a title per se, but I want to own something.
I want to tell my mom that I'm making progress. And
yes.
part of the profit is moving to Zurich. So I want time off to enjoy that. I'll take less money to be less responsible, but to be in Zurich and tell my mom that I live in Zurich with a title. Right?
Well, but that's so true. You're so right about that. I really like what you say about ownership. You can decide what you want to do, but make it your own. Have it be there. Like, I am responsible for this, right? My last job that I left, I had a 25% raise from the previous job I had. I left it after 9 or 10 months because they did not let me have ownership. And I said, let me try to do this. I offered again and again. I have all these great ideas. I want to try to push for this. I want to create this product. Give me again and again and again and again. And they said, okay, we'll take that into consideration. And I was like, what am I doing? I'm just turning a crank, writing a report, giving it to somebody else. I was working remotely and had great flexibility, but what was the point? I didn't have anything that was mine. I didn't have the impact. There was nothing that was like the damn stamp on that thing. Yeah. So it really is great that you're reflecting a lot of that in your hiring practices and your corporate philosophy.
We have to, it's not a convenience. It's like we have to. Nobody's going to come if you don't change, the working culture to something different, something that suits this talent pool. Right. It's just not going to work. And money is the least problem. It's other things. Again, we had to hire engineers, and for them, having a zero meeting culture was what made them apply. Right, it's not the money. It was also the mission, but also knowing that they're not going to spend half the time in some meetings. Pretending that they're interested, right? So we have a very specific way of communicating. We use Loom, we use Slack, we use a few tools, and our engineers can, they can focus all day. They can work. We don't care when they work, as long as they kind of, they react when there is really something.
As long as everything works.
Get the job done when it needs to be done.
Yes, and it can be asynchronous, And right. what really keeps us on the floor is we have a 14-year-old hired. She still goes to school, and the way she thinks about purpose and working and all of that is very different. So we have her because she's been suffering from anxiety and panic attacks since she was 9. So she's an expert. And the way she looks at the world and what she wants and what is value to her is so different. Right. And that's going to be the kind of person that we're going to hire, and people are going to hire in a few years. That's going to be the working force. So we learn from her what is actually an incentive to people, and not promote things that people don't want just because it was fashionable 20 years ago. When I was around, maybe that worked, but Gen Z is totally different.
They don't need a 401k. They just want the experience, and then they'll move to another experience, I feel.
I think we've given up on the concept that a 401k, like the depressing thing, and I'm sure I'd love to hear about this, but there's a certain lack of belief in long-term investment in our generation, because we think, well, in 20 years, the sea levels are going to rise. There's probably going to be a nuclear holocaust, and the rich are going to own everything. So what's the point of saving my money till I'm 65 because I'm going to be dead by 40, right? Yeah. There's a lot of that kind of resignation. People don't really want to acknowledge it, but I hear a lot of that in the humor of the mid to late millennials and the older Gen Z. Yeah, and it's kind of disturbing. And it's something that we need to recognize for many, many reasons. But one of the perhaps the more utilitarian methods is, employment, right? You definitely want to give people a chance to invest and have their assets grow and everything, and you have to recognize the moral philosophical changes that have happened in our generation that are so fundamentally different from the people who are, executive management, CEO in the boardroom level. Because again, everything, all this communication, this evolutionary philosophy has accelerated so much in the age of social media. And we're using platforms like TikTok that most people don't even most people don't even know exist, but just write off as, oh, this is a stupid little app. It's like, no, there are huge communities that are happening and building, and if you just forget or ignore them because, oh, that's just what the young people are doing. Look, what the young people are going to be the future. You might as well start listening to them. So it's interesting. So what's the work-life balance of a 14-year-old who works at EarKick and then goes to school?
So she basically she goes to school. She can't go to school fully because of her anxiety and depression that sometimes still hits her. And so she works. We have a call with her every week, and she works at her own pace. And she's required to just be herself, and that's not as easy as it sounds.
I know,
but
right?
everything that we do and decide, we show to her, and she needs to be very focused then and really be herself and try to understand how she she really feels about it, not what we want to hear, but what she really feels about. And that's her work. She's quite wise about taking breaks and not working. She does cancel the call if there's something that she can handle at that moment. Okay. The only thing we require, and she requires, is a good communication, and we do it again asynchronous via Slack. And once in a while, you kind of have to see each other physically if possible. I mean, people in the Ukraine unfortunately can't join our retreats. And what she also needs is to be treated like a grown-up, and we do that. I mean, we're aware that she's 14, but in many things she's very grown-up, and she wants to be treated as a grown-up in that moment.
And I always speak to her. Expectation, right?
Totally. I always speak to her grown-up person. I speak to what I think and believe she will become. I speak to the grown-up Ella, and it's wonderful to have this vision about her and what she can become, and we try to foster this ambition also in our younger employees, that they can they can be entrepreneurs. We're not going to be in their way. So for them, it's not I have to stay this and this many years. No, this is your apprenticeship. If you make it that, and if the time comes to go, then we'll work it out together, and we'll help you, on your next step. And that has worked out very well with all my younger employees back in my last job, to really make yourself a sparring partner rather than like the boss who's, trying to gauge whether you're applying somewhere else. That's not going to work. They're so smart. I'm not going to tell you.
In all my years of working I went through secondary school. I worked as a youth sports official. In college, I worked in multiple research labs and other jobs. And obviously, since I graduated college, I've worked several other jobs too. In all of my early career experience, I have never once been told by an employer or a supervisor to be myself. Now you said that. You said that. You were like, "Oh yeah, we want her to be herself," right? That's like, yeah. So be who you want me to be. It's like, no, I'm who I am. I very firmly identify as like being the proactive idea guy who wants to create things and come in and not say you're doing it wrong, but say let's do other cool things as well. And that has always been suppressed in all of my time working in my early career, and it's been so frustrating to see, because everyone in my generation, I don't want to say everyone, but lots of people in my generation feel the exact same way, right? We want to be engaged. We want people to say, what do you think, Dan? I'm curious, what ideas do you have, right? And to hear you talking about that is so refreshing, but also a little bit sad, because it seems like such an obvious concept that is so fundamentally missed. And then all these companies are like, well, we're offering them an extra raise and all this extra. I mean, no, they're not coming to employ. Why don't they want to work at Chipotle? All right. Well, I mean, what kind of company culture do you have? Are you going to just tell them to sit down and shut up and work, or are you going to say, hey, let's see what we can do to make this work? And it's like sometimes you can't do that with all your jobs, but the great resignation's happening in that demographic of jobs where people could be engaged better, and they are being told, no, you're going to do it my way. I don't like it.
You know, the funny thing about she asked me why she should do that, and I said, Ella, this is the only time you're going to be 14. Because next year you're going to be 15. So my only chance to understand a 14-year-old is now. So you have to be yourself. Don't try to be someone else, right? And that applies to, I was working with an activist in my last job. And people try to force her into another role, be more like a consultant. But they're missing out on her best part. You know, activists like in their 20s, they're so strong. I mean, they come to work, they have this immense, you know, passion about, they're never going to be like that again. When they hit 30, 40, they're just a different person. They're a different package. And you only get that package once. If you don't use it, screw you, really.
Right.
Fair.
There's an expiration date on youth that I don't think people pay enough attention to. Yeah. At some point we die in the side and we just go with what's working, you know, instead of bucking the system.
Did you guys know there's a medication that is proven to treat migraines and prevent episodic migraines in adults? It's called Nurtec ODT, Reimagine 75 milligrams. If you suffer from migraine attacks, talk to your doctor to see if Nurtec ODT is right for you. Don't take if you're allergic to Nurtec ODT. The most common side effects were nausea, stomach pain, and indigestion. For important safety prescribing and patient information, visit NURTEC.com.
Introducing Under Armour's Infinity High Sports Bra. Its ergonomic design is molded to support the natural movement of your body. With cord-out padding, the better breathability eliminates extra bulk without sacrificing support. And quick-dry padding is Under Armour's fastest-drying padding yet. When you're lifting heavy, running fast, and pushing yourself further than ever before, you need a bra that will help you go that extra mile and make you feel your best. Shop the Infinity High Sports Bra now at UA.com.
That's interesting to me. And like you keep talking about the great resignation. I was talking to my friend and I said it wasn't 10 million jobs. It was 2 million people getting a job, quitting, getting a job, quitting, getting a job, quitting. Because I don't think employers are changing the way you are. I think they think they know they have to, but they just cannot treat employees like the ecosystem that they are. They think that employees are interchangeable and a new one at a lower cost can do the same thing if pushed hard enough as the one that with experience they let go, you know?
I'd like to hear the thoughts of the group on this, right? I'm just starting to come to this realization now because this like the mental juices flow so well when I'm on this show, and I really appreciate the value about that, right? But you think about, so let's think about what, you know, employment culture was, right? Back in the era, and I know international company based in Switzerland, everything different story, but like, as an American, I'll talk about like the American dream of the nice colonial house with the white picket fence and the stability and all that stuff, right? That was the motivator because it was feasible back from the 50s through the 80s or whatever. That's really not possible anymore. If you just look at the basic economics of what the late millennials and Gen Z are facing, we're not going to have that. We don't have that motivation to say, well, if you just knuckle down and just do this X job that's kind of menial and you shift papers from one tray to another tray, you can go home and, you know, really enjoy this wonderful house and this wonderful stability and this permanent luxury that you have of, you know, having access to healthcare, having a good mortgage, not being defaulting on your debt, and being able to have free time, right? We don't have that anymore. Mm-hmm. So you can't just say, turn the crank and you'll make money, because there's no guarantee for us that, oh, well, we'll go buy this house. I'm sorry, average house in my neighborhood right now is what, $700,000, you know, and people are buying them like at 25% markup because of this housing bubble that we're in. You can't goad me by saying, oh, if you just do this for 20 years, you'll get a house. No, that's not what happens. So what motivates young people is not the material gains from menial labor. It's the value that is intrinsically entwined into the work that they do. And that's why millennials and Gen Z say, I want impact, I want impact. No job has had impact in this great resignation sector because it didn't have to, because the money promised the impact outside of work. But that impact outside of work is just not a reality for most millennials anymore. So that's my hypothesis, but I'd love to hear what you guys think.
It's the same actually in Europe and Switzerland. So no difference here. People can't afford a house. Young people, forget it. It's like not possible.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
this is where it's going to get fun, and I think what we're missing here is historical context. You know, in the 50s, you have to remember that whole dream of the house with the white picket fence. You're looking at a group of people who either lived through the Great Depression or whose parents lived through the Great Depression in a time of great instability. And so because of that great instability during that time, and the fact that you could not find anything stable for work, and, you know, you looked at, you know, if you had work, it was more like day laborer status, up until the point where you end up in the war. All of this great instability that you had leads to this strange appreciation for stable, but oftentimes, quote unquote, meaningless work. It wasn't that you had these people that were, you know, not going to have ideas or didn't want to buck the system. It's that they lived through enough instability that when they finally found it, they were perfectly fine with staying in these very stable but very dead-end jobs. And that was how they made their system work for them during that time period. They lived through so much upheaval and chaos that the idea of just having something that was going to be there tomorrow and the day after, the month after, the year after, that for them was security. And the problem is that, you know, for our generation, you know, like I'm at that weird cross section where, you know, I'm a millennial, but I'm closer towards Gen X in a lot of ways.
You're like an earlier millennial. I'm a later millennial. Yeah.
Exactly. And so, like, you know, even, you know, like Gen Z, there's a lot that, you know, happen to relate with. You know, for us, it's like that idea that you could have stability has not been present for us. Ever since I've gotten out of school, it has been completely unstable. You know, between, you know, you had the .com bust, you had the auto industry go down, you had the financial crisis, the global financial crisis, and we've moved from instability to instability to instability. And for us, the value system has changed. We're not used to stability at this point, because we're so used to these large corporations taking advantage of us and dumping us off when they've used us, that we don't have the same value system that the older generation does. We're used to the idea that somebody's going to use us, and then when they're done with us, kick us to the curb. And now, for the first time in my adult life, that has been flipped on its head, and now these companies are coming after me because they can't get anybody in the door.
Because we're all done with them.
And I'm fucking over them because I would rather do something with somebody else who's felt themselves in a similar way and actually focus on community and actual needs to drive actual impacts, rather than these organizations that have been around and turned and burned people, use them up and spit them out. And I can say good riddance to them. Their business model does not work anymore for me, because my value system has seen how they have used up people like me and spit them out once they didn't fit their idea of what should happen. They either didn't want to innovate, or they didn't want to focus on actual.
They didn't know how. And you know what? I want to add that the pandemic gave us all a chance to live on almost nothing, because we couldn't get out to get anything. So we learned to live on almost nothing, and now companies want to pay us nothing, and we're like, we can survive at home on that.
And and also the pandemic took away a lot of our the activities that gave us meaning,
right?
And so we were told to go home and live with nothing and also do nothing. So we had a lot of time to reflect on what we cared about, and this is kind of the emergence of that. So Karin, what do you think?
I agree with what you say. I made another observation as well with the Gen Z folks. So whenever I interview people, unless they have to do a technical interview, which would be with someone else, I try to find out what their passion is and where their heart is, and what, if possible, their bucket list is. because it tells you a lot. And what I've observed is that they, quite a number of Gen Z folks, they want to go travel, not for leisure or, for whatever, making selfies, as people sometimes think they want. They say to me, I want to see the world while I still have it. I want to see nature while I still, while it exists. I want to see, I don't know, the glaciers while they're still there.
Because the future is bleak after that point, right?
Right.
Correct. And that I'm not going to wait until like I have enough money. I can survive on couch surfing. I have this plan, like I'm going to do this. And I am not going to do this in a rush in 3 weeks. I want you to give me half a year or a year of sabbatical within my contract, so that I can do that. And that's how I found out how utterly important it is for people that we hire, that they can work from wherever they want. They can work from the beach if they want. They can be on the road. If they get their stuff together, if they have a plan and they're organized and structured to some extent, and if they stay mentally healthy, I'm fine, And some of them, so the traveling part and experience, they want to live, like they're thirsty for life and doing things that they have read about. They want to experience it themselves. They don't want to accumulate a ton of stuff.
Right. That's important. They don't want to accumulate a lot of possessions.
Not at all.
They want
Cars,
to be able to
forget
move
it.
fast. Right.
Yes.
Pictures, tables, lamps. They don't care.
No, they will go to a concert that they believe in, or they will do things that they believe in terms of nature trips or whatever. But it's not going to get a car and then a washing machine in an apartment. It's not that. And the other thing is that they have, how shall I say, they have a clear idea of, let's say, a project or a big thing that they want to do. And when you talk with them about it, it becomes clear that they have maybe a black and white picture of it, but they don't quite see the colors yet. And the job is to never doubt their picture, but to have their back and to help them feel those colors without making them feel, naive or inferior, which they are not.
Right.
And that they want this kind of leadership. They don't want you to kind of tell them, okay, now you have to sweat your way off or something. They want you to be a good and guiding sparring partner. And if you feel during the interview that you're not going to be able, for whatever reason, to be that sparring partner, don't hire them, because you're not doing yourself a good favor. You're not doing them a good favor. You're both going to suffer. And that's a lesson I had to learn. I had to let go of people early because of that. And I'm glad I did, for their sake and for my own sake.
Of course.
And I'm getting better at it, but it's still like, you can't listen enough to them. They will give you all the clues. If I could, I would voice record it to listen over and over, because in that interview, they will give you all the cues, consciously or unconsciously. They do. And that's the magic about it. And that's why I believe in that generation, even though, people say they have a lot of flaws and they're lazy and they're entitled and all that stuff.
They are so well researched. They will know everything about your company before they even set up an interview.
What they need is that we believe in them, and that we kind of color their vision, and not judge them for, let's say, only using a few colors, because they can easily grow into it.
Right. They don't know green exists until they're shown green. And then when they add it to their picture, they see it in a whole new way. And now they want to know what purple and orange are,
Yes. And that's how you grow a real leader. You grow. I mean, they can lead at 30. It's not a problem at all. They can even lead earlier, but you have to guide them, and you have to give them the responsibility very early when they're still making mistakes. And that's the beauty of it. Let them make mistakes. They'll learn so fast. And it's not you need to make it very clear. I want you to make the mistakes now, not later.
Right.
I
That's
really
my
like
whole
that.
theory on parenthood. If you just let your kids make mistakes till they're 18, they won't make those mistakes after 18, you know?
Some will, but yes, generally yes.
Right.
I agree.
One thing that I picked up on, and I feel like I'm falling into a pattern of catching one word from each of Karin's answers, right? But the concept of partnership, right? That's another philosophical evolution that's happened in the last 10-ish years that a lot of companies haven't come up. Before, a lot of it was, I give you money and you do this work, right?
Yeah.
That's that sector of employment will always be there, from people who come in and pressure wash your front driveways. Like, I will give you money to pressure all the contract work, all the I hate using the term blue collar because it seems demeaning, but that industrial work, right, is really the service industry that's there, right? But again, the demographic that the Great Resignation is getting hit most by are the people who working in jobs where they want that partnership that Karin's talking about, right?
Right.
I want to come in, and I have my experience, I have my perspectives, I'm younger, I don't have everything figured out. I know I don't have everything figured out, and by the way, I don't have the
baggage of habits either, you know?
And I don't need you to tell me that I don't have everything figured out. Thank you very much, right? But I do have interests, and I have goals, and I have dreams and things like that, and I want to try and conceptualize something, just like Karin was talking about. Like, can I try this out with your work? And if employers and supervisors embody more, I think the phrase that is the type of leadership, like a transformational servant leadership model.
Yeah.
That's kind of the buzzword for it. But how can I support you, person who is technically my subordinate, but I want to work with you as a partner, right? As opposed to my person who does this thing, she does this for me, he does this for me, I make the money and I represent it up, right? Now, having that co-equal partnership is something, again, that just is culturally, we're behind the times in kind of the white collar class of work, and people like Karin are picking up on the change that needs to happen, but it's not happening fast enough because late millennials and Gen Z are pushing that change by saying, no, I'm not working for you anymore because you're not providing me this, right? I can speak firsthand multiple times over. I've had multiple jobs where I've not been seen as a partner and I wanted to be, and people say, oh, you just need to manage your own expectations of yourself. Literal verbatim quote. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go this way. And that happens to be the door. Goodbye. Right. And I did quit my last job at 4:30 p.m. on a Friday, effective immediately with no day's notice, because I was done with them. And they actually had the audacity to laugh at me after they deliberately did not invite me to a meeting about a topic that I had created and wanted to push forward. And they decided to deliberately cut me out of the meeting because I wasn't high ranking enough. So they took my idea and they were like, oh yeah, the senior people talked about it and you weren't there because you weren't old enough or weren't senior enough. Okay.
Oh gosh.
Thanks for talking about that on Wednesday. I'm going to hold off until Friday afternoon. I don't care. I don't have another job lined up, but 4:30 on a Friday? Oh, you want to have a meeting with me, HR? Boom. Here's my letter of resignation effective immediately.
There you go.
Right.
It's all based on this fact that Dan would outshine anyone else in that meeting, get notice, and suddenly all the managers that didn't want to put in the work to be better would find themselves without a job, because people that want to work are always better than people that don't. But for some reason, management always consists of the people that failed upwards, and then they protect their jobs by denying people below them.
It's so stupid because, I mean, you are supposed to hire people that are smarter than you.
Yeah.
And that's what I do all day, right? Hire people that are smarter than me. And when they come in the door, you should treat them as that, I'm not saying they're more experienced and they're smarter. That's why I hired them.
It's something,
so if they're
not everything, something.
If we're not going to let them bring in their smartness in full, right? The whole package, I mean, why do you hire them?
That's right.
Exactly. And that's been one of the biggest things that my generation and Gen Z have seen is that, yeah, okay, we get it. We don't necessarily come in with all of the experience, but when we propose ideas and we get laughed at, and then suddenly, like 3 months later, they're like, hey, that idea, I've got this idea. And it's like, I was just talking to you about that and you fucking laughed at me.
Right.
And that's the thing is, like, even for my age, like most people, like, oh, well, you don't have any management experience. I'm like, I have managed 3 multi-million-dollar companies. and I'm 36. So when you tell me that I don't have any management experience because I haven't managed at an organization, I'm going to laugh at you because I have managed more than most of your managers have. I have more education, I have different experience, and I am more well read on industry standards. And I don't fall under the, well, if we're just going to keep doing what we've always done. Now, that's where I expect the people who are more experienced and have more time in to say, okay, I like what you're doing. Here's the framework we have to work in. If you can figure out how to make this work within this framework, let's try it. But most of them are like, no, we're not going to do that. And then suddenly it's like, I've grown up with this. Well, you just have to make it seem like it's their idea. No, fuck you, it's my idea.
Right.
I don't want it to be somebody else's idea. I want somebody to support me in my idea.
Also fighting, by the way.
In order to help the company grow.
Right.
I own it. I am providing this as a method of getting myself further involved with the company, and what you're telling me is you don't want that involvement. Fine, I'm going to go somewhere else.
Right.
Yeah.
I did get the last laugh of my company because 3.5 weeks after they quit, they sent a notification to the rest of the company that they were going to be closing down, selling the company, and 70% of them were going to get laid off. So evidently they didn't really know what they were doing, and I was the one who did have the ideas, and they got rid of the idea guy. Oh well. But I think
not your problem.
Yeah, not my problem anymore.
That shouldn't happen.
I think it's also really interesting because you mentioned, because Jason made the mention of it, this happened to women, and I could definitely not speak to this because I'm not a woman. I'd love to hear Karen's perspective on this. But one phrase that I've heard a lot recently, so everyone has heard the term mansplaining, right? You know, the I am the man, you're the woman. You clearly don't know. Like you have a PhD in clinical psychology. I'm going to explain to you what Pavlov's dog is because you clearly don't know what that is, right? But another phrase I've heard a lot is called he-peating, which is female employee comes up with a great idea, male employee takes it, says it verbatim, and all of a sudden it's the guy's idea, and the female.
Oh my god! Yep.
The he-peating. I'm sure that's Jeffrey. You've had a different experience, but I think that term is specifically for like the context of sexism involved in it, as opposed to the concept of ageism or other profiling. Mm-hmm. But I'm curious to hear Karen's perspective on how, you know, the gender stereotyping that's been so common in a lot of this work has been combated in your experience. Like, how have you tackled that, especially in your executive role now?
It has happened, not in this, in my current job, obviously, because we still trying to get more women in. We have one wonderful Ukrainian, and she can, you know, we have this policy of 20% of your time you can use for something that you like, that you believe is good for the company. And it tends that, like the ambience mixer I was telling you before, that was built in those 20%. So every employee that wants to have those 20% and use them in a creative way can do that. So that means that if a woman came up with something, and I'm sure that Natalia is going to do that, naturally it's going to be her ownership and her glory. But in my previous experiences, I have seen that play out. And when the women came and complained to me, I first of all, I felt so sorry, but I encouraged them to write down everything. That was like the only tool I could tell them to do, to have, you know, do a presentation, have everything in written, and make sure to have everyone on the same page that this was her idea, and that when it was and why it was, etc. It's a bit more work, but it covers your ass, as we say. It did work out. It did work out because I've seen that too. And I don't think that, you know, the male colleague was meaning bad. They just believe that it was their idea, just because they have been, you know, talking about it with the female employee or colleague over a certain times. And women, and I'm the same, we seek for confirmation, we seek for approval, we seek for, you know, we want to have other people look at our ideas and kind of go, yeah, you know, continue. And I told all my female employees and colleagues to just, write it down, put it on paper, even if it doesn't look brilliant, but put it on paper, put a date on it. And when time comes and somebody else claims the idea, you have proof. It's sad that we have to do it, but that's how we did. And it helped. In most of the instances, it did help.
It's something that even I've encouraged, not just for myself and some of my own ideas, but for many other colleagues who have ideas, is we got used to this idea. It's like, oh, hey, come to our open door and talk to us about anything.
Right.
And that has come back to bite us in the ass so many times, where we have this great idea. And much like Karin said, we go in, we talk to this person about this idea that we have, we get poo-pooed on it, and like, oh, well, that's just never going to work. And then suddenly somebody is pitching our idea, or we're implementing our idea, my idea, and it's just like, no, like, why wasn't I involved in this? This was something that I came to. And so it's like, I developed a habit of writing everything down. I have a physically written copy. I have an electronically written copy of what I have. And I use email a lot to show where the idea came from. And if there's a problem where the company, I go to the company and say, look, I came up with this idea. Why wasn't I involved? And the company goes, well, it came from your superior, and, we're just going to go with what they're doing. You don't need to be involved in this. Then I'm going to be like, all right, cool. This company does not value me. I'm out. And that's what Gen Z is doing. They're going, cool, this company does not value me and my input. I don't need to be here.
They value the product you create rather than you as a person.
Yeah, exactly. And there's just no time left for that. They're like, fuck it. I can be point and click anywhere else. I can literally just stock shelves and not have to think.
And nobody wants to work for evil, by the way. And the more you start realizing your company takes shortcuts instead of bettering themselves, you realize they might be slightly evil, and you don't want to be a part of that.
Karin is eager to jump in.
The good thing is, like, I had this case once, and the particular colleague, she left because she felt like, every idea she had was kind of not taken, but they ended up using it in another way. And I told her, look, if you are the source of the ideas and you go away, you will see that there is, the source is not there anymore. So they will repeat the old ideas. Nothing new is going to come when you leave.
Right.
And that shall be your revenge. And it was exactly like that. Like for a year, no new ideas. And then they were like, oh, we got to hire someone new because, right? So she knew that she was the source. It didn't help her job. Yeah. It didn't help. But when I met with her, I said, see, when you are the sun and you are the one giving the light and the warmth, and you're not credited for it, remove yourself and it will be cold and dark.
Right.
Ain't no revenge like success, right?
Living well is the best revenge.
I always say there's accountability. We just don't hang out long enough to see it.
I like that.
Wow. Well, I love I don't even know who said it. Surrounding yourself with people smarter than you. That's been my philosophy.
That's all Karin,
today.
That was Karin.
I love it.
Hire them.
That's what we try and do, is get smarter people than me on here. My goal is just to once in a while bring it back with a statement of obvious for the people like Ted Cruz that legislate below a third grade level. You know what I mean? But I love listening to you all talk about things that really matter like this. I think it's important for corporations to realize that employees need to be taken seriously. We want the responsibility, we want the pride, and if you take that away from us, then we're going to go find it somewhere else for less money in a better place. Who doesn't want to go to work in Zurich and see Zurich? Like, I wouldn't mind going here. I wouldn't mind working for Home Depot in Zurich, but I wouldn't want to do it 80 hours a week so that I could never see Zurich, right? So there's a balance there that I think millennials have that we older people just don't understand. And so, Karin, what I love about you is you honor that phrase, ask a young person how to do it and then get out of their way and let them do it. I really appreciate that about you and EarKick. EarKick is a really great app, and it continues to grow and evolve, and you can use it in your own ways, even though it might not originally have been set up that way, and your input and inspirations will help the app to evolve and become better for everybody. And I think that's an amazing thing that we really need more of. And I love your independence from anything bigger tech. I love the independence of it, that you're not like just building something to be taken over by Facebook. That's cool.
No.
She's like, whoa, gross. Facebook.
Didn't say that, but
no, I did.
I have my ideas.
I did. Oh, Facebook is gross. All right. Hey Dan, do you have any just the tips before we finish up?
I would say go for a walk when you can. I think it's really it's in the context of maintaining good mental health and all the things we've been talking about. I think one thing that especially when I was working remotely for this company that I just railed against in this podcast, right? I found myself kind of trapped in my basement apartment with minimal light, and there were days where I was like, "What the hell's going on? What am I doing? What's my point of anything?" And I just went out and went for a walk, even when it was really freezing cold. And going outside and breathing some fresh air and seeing life move around you is very comforting, and coming back and having some kind of stability. And I think if you just go and take the time to deliberately walk away from your desk, from your laptop, from your place of work, whenever you get the chance, going outside, breathing some air and seeing other things happening besides people working is a tremendous boost to your mental health, no matter where you are. So that's my recommendation. Just a tip: go for a walk.
Comes with a bag of goodies. It's really.
And that was part of our advice in our first episode, so I love that.
Yes.
Hey Karin, how about you? Do you have just a tip for us?
I just want to second Dan. Again, I'm gonna write about this because it seems so simple, and why don't people do it? But it's your superpower. Go for a walk. Even 5 minutes around the block is going to make a difference. And anyone who does it and doesn't feel any difference, call me.
Yeah, I love that. And Dan, anytime you're feeling that way, you have my phone number. Please call me.
I appreciate it.
I don't want anybody I love feeling that way, and I really love and respect all of you. So thank you for being here. I got Jeffrey's just the tip in the last episode. So is there anything any summation that you want to offer, Jeffrey, before we go?
I think everything that Dan has talked about, what Karin has observed and is looking at, I think realistically, companies that don't look at this information and see that if you don't involve the younger generation, you're not going to be the attractive place to work that you think you are. A lot of us have gone beyond the point of money meaning everything for us, and we're tired of being treated as something we're just told to do. We want to make things better, and especially for the younger generation, they're louder about it than we ever were, and it's great. So the question is how do you take that excitement? How do you take that initiative that every company says that they want and actually put it into practice? Well, I'll tell you right now, EarKick apparently is doing that, especially by working with, someone who's 14 years old. And if you don't do that now, if you don't start to learn from that now, don't be surprised when you're not the number one employer that you claim to be.
Yeah.
Or if you don't exist in 10 years.
Exactly. There is enough diversity out there now that somebody is going to be able to get their needs fulfilled in employment, not just financially, but emotionally and mentally. And that's, I think, one of the strengths that I hope all of us take forward.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah,
well
definitely.
said.
And now that it's on the record, we can continue discussing it.
Get a timestamp for that email.
I'm always hearing that in the news. Somebody does something 4 months after we talked about it on the show, and I'm like, we talked about that.
Get a copy. Trademark it.
Ours. Yeah. I don't care as long as it's getting out there. I would hope every employer listens to this and says, I better learn from what I just heard before I'm forced to. You know what I mean?
Again, you're the source. So as long as you know you're the source, you're the sun. People will have to come ask you.
This was fun. This was a really fun conversation. I appreciate it. I really love you guys. Y'all are great.
To those who would tear the world down, we will defeat you. This is our moment. This is our time. To those who seek peace and security, we support you. Yes, we can. And to all those who have wondered if America's beacon still burns as bright, tonight we prove once more that the true strength of our nation comes not from the might of our arms or the scale of our wealth, but from the enduring power of our ideals, democracy, liberty, opportunity, and unyielding hope.
Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbow. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life.
Ask not.
Yes, we can.
What your country can do for you. I have a dream. Ask what you can do for your country.
My poor little children. Yes, we can.
One day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression.
In this lifetime, you don't have to prove nothing to nobody except yourself.
But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward.
That's how winning is done.
Welcome to Public Access America.
Yes, we can.
Sunday live streams on YouTube.
I wanted to run out of that tunnel for my dad.
On Twitter.
What?
Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Smart Radio Public, and Spotify.
Yes, we can.
Public Access America. History in the making. Making history in the making.
Family. It looks a little different for everyone. For some, it's mom and dad. For others, roommates who feel like family. And for others, it's your significant other, their golfing buddies, your children, a high school soccer team starting lineup, and oh look, they're all taking you up on the offer to stay for dinner, really testing the limits of that phrase, the more the merrier. But no matter where you call home, Geico makes it easy to bundle and save on home and car insurance. Easier than making 3 frozen pizzas and assorted frozen veggies into a cohesive meal.
Introducing Under Armour's Infinity High Sports Bra. Its ergonomic design is molded to support the natural movement of your body. With cord-out padding, the better breathability eliminates extra bulk without sacrificing support. And quick-dry padding is Under Armour's fastest-drying padding yet. When you're lifting heavy, running fast, and pushing yourself further than ever before, you need a bra that will help you go that extra mile and make you feel your best. Shop the Infinity High Sports Bra now at UA.com.